So this is how to do a portrait double exposure technique using Photoshop. Originally this was done in a dark room, either by using two negatives, or you could also do it in camera by taking two pictures on the same little bit of film. But it's become really popular. It's quite a simple thing to do. And now there are loads and loads of different ways of doing this. I mean, Photoshop has 100 different ways of doing every single technique. But this is one that I found really quick, simple, and really effective. So, what you need to start with is one portrait. It really helps if it's got quite a plain background already. So you've either shot it in the studio or with quite a plain background. Second thing is if you have some nice shadow on one side of the face. Now here we've got quite some nice shadow on the left hand side of the face. This was shot just with window light, so you can get quite a nice effect if they're standing at a slight angle towards a window. You get this nice shadow fall off across the side of their face, and that just works really nicely with this technique. Second thing you need is a nice kind of landscape shot. Indoor shot, anything with some nice textures. Trees work well, branches work well, just landscape shots in general, something that's contrasting with the portrait shot itself. So first thing you need to do is get the quick select tool up here. This is one of the best tools in Photoshop. It's amazing. If it's not on quick selection already, you just click and hold and go to quick selection. Sometimes it might be on Magic Wand, but it's usually the fourth tool down. Make sure that the plus is selected up here. It should be by default, so that's fine. And then just kind of hold down click and roughly paint around your subject's head. Now that does it pretty quickly, it's pretty amazing. But that won't be perfect. As you can see, if I zoom in down here, some of the facial hair is not in there, and there's some bits missing here. It's good, but it's not perfect. So, if we go to select and go to refine edge, this is the best tool that you will discover on Photoshop if you haven't already. It's fantastic. So I'm just going to click there. Now it just shows you a preview of what your selection will look like on a plain white background. So this is your starting point. Now what's really good to use here is this little tool here. If I click this and click Refine Radius tool, make the brush a tiny bit smaller by using the square brackets. So the one on the left makes it smaller, one on the right makes it bigger. If I then just paint over around the edge and then let go, you'll see that it's really cleverly selected some of the hairs there. So does a really good job of those slightly dodgy selections, especially when there's hair. I can just paint with this and it will help me out in getting a decent edge. So that's looking pretty good. I mean, I'm pretty happy with that just as it is. But I would have a play around with all these sliders as well. Feather, I'll show you what that does. That kind of feathers the edge. It looks a bit fake if you overuse it. Smooth makes the edge a bit smoother. Self-explanatory. Contrast, you get a bit of a harsher edge. So if you see it there, it's quite a sharp edge. But if I pull it to the left, I get a bit of a softer edge. And then you can shift it from one side to the other as well. So some really useful tools there, but I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just going to click OK. Now what I need to do is copy that and paste it. So if I press Command C, that'll copy. If I press Command V, that'll paste it as a new layer. Okay. Now it's just got the head as the new layer on the right. So if I turn this background layer off, that's fine, that's pretty good. There's a bit of a dodgy patch up here, but I think we can work with that for the moment. It doesn't look too bad. If I now press Command J or click this PD bit of paper down on the bottom right, or just Command J, that'll create Now, if I press the peely bit of paper down here, it will create a new blank layer. Now, I need to get the paint bucket tool. It's already on white. Fill that in white. Now it's going to disappear. All you need to do is drag that white layer underneath the portrait. And now we've got our portrait on a plain white background. That's our starting point, and we're pretty much there now. You can probably go ahead and delete the original layer. Just press highlight it and click backspace or delete it. So now what I need is my landscape shot. So another shortcut for you to remember, Command A for select all, A for all, and Command C for copy. Then go back onto our image and Command V for paste. So now I need to move this into place. If you press Command T, I know that's a lot of shortcuts to remember, but I'll make sure they pop up on your screen. Command T, that's transform. So now I can move the image around. It's a bit small, so if I hold Shift and pull out one of the corners, it means it won't change the kind of aspect ratio and squish it. It'll keep it exactly as it is. That's looking pretty good. Might make it even a bit bigger. Now I need to see how it will line up with my portrait, so I can change the opacity of the layer over here and then kind of line it up slightly with my portrait. I might even get a little bit more in. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? That's nice. Now, once I'm happy with that, I can put the opacity back up to 100 and hit enter. And we're pretty much there now. So if you've watched the layer masks tutorial, you'll already know this, but there's a little button on the bottom right here. Is the layer mask. We need to make sure that our landscape background image is selected and hit that layer mask. Now I need to turn that layer mask black by pressing Command I to invert it. So now that background layer can't be seen because the black is covering it up. So this is the clever part. If I now highlight my portrait layer on the bottom right here and go to Edit and Define Brush Preset. Now this might be grayed out like these ones here if you go to this. All you need to do in that case is reduce your file size slightly by going to Image and Image Size, and then change the size, make it a bit smaller. Just see what works. It should be roughly 20 centimeters by 30 centimeters, something like that. Just make the file size a bit smaller and it should make this Define Brush Preset available for you. Now if I click that, name it Head, because it's his head, you'll see that it's made this little brush here, and it's made a brush from his face. This is really smart. So now when I click OK and get the brush tool, you can press B or go over and press the brush tool. It should automatically load the brush preset you just made, but if not, go up to the top left up here and scroll down, and you can see I've done it a few times before. I was just practicing earlier, but you can just select the brush. It should be on the bottom, so it'll probably default be at the top. You can just scroll to the bottom, find your brush, and this is the really smart bit. Make sure that it's white down on the bottom left here. Then select your black layer mask that's on your background. Line up with the original and make sure the opacity up the top is at 100. Nearly forgot that part. Off to 100. Line it up. You don't have to be exact, and just click once. And that pretty much is it. The next thing that's really useful to do is if you actually just turn off the original portrait by clicking the eye off, you get this really lovely faded double exposure portrait in just a few moves. Now that's it. You can go ahead with that, or you can do a few adjustments. So if you've watched the adjustment layer tutorial, click on this little button here, and one of the ones that I didn't show you is black and white. So if you wanted it to be black and white, that'll then affect the whole image, and you can just play with these sliders and do it to your own taste, and then you've just got a lot more control over the image, and you can do a black and white version, colour version, you can do all sorts of versions, and just go out, have fun and play around with this because it's a great technique.